So I'd like to talk about the benefits that I've found of not having consumed alcohol in over 6 years, just over 6 years, and caffeine for 3 years and 3.5 months or so. How did it come about? So first of all, I stopped drinking alcohol, and it was a gradual process. I didn't set out to quit drinking. I didn't like the way I felt drinking, and not necessarily sure drinking can be fun, but it's the way I felt the next day. I felt like I was wasting my life. And even just having a glass or two eventually started to drain me of energy nonetheless. And so I just stopped over time. I would say in 2018, I maybe had half a dozen drinks throughout the whole year at best. And I would say almost all of them were when I was traveling abroad, just like, a wonderful glass of wine with a meal. I had maybe half a dozen drinks at best, the entirety of 2018. And then in 2019, I found myself abroad, and I was back in Seoul, South Korea. And they have an alcohol there called makgeolli, and my pronunciation is not perfect, so if you are Korean, please forgive me. But that is like a rice wine, so to speak, and it's not pasteurized, and it is delicious. Excuse me. Sorry, I've got mosquitoes here. And that was in May of 2019. That was probably my last drink, was a glass of makgeolli. And I don't miss it. I don't miss alcohol one bit. And I think that if you are thinking of quitting, there are some of us who can go cold turkey, and I am certainly one of those people. I'll talk about my quitting of caffeine in just a moment. But with alcohol, it was really gradual. It was more of that the less I was drinking, the better I was starting to feel. And then that quality of life was just something I wasn't willing to give up anymore. I wanted to keep feeling better and better. I wanted to feel younger, and I wanted to have more energy to do all the things I wanted to do. And if that meant giving up alcohol, then fine, and again, it was a gradual progression over years. I just wasn't drinking as much. It does take some time because, socially it's quite awkward. And not for me, but for other people, and other people make it awkward. When I decline a drink, you'll be amazed how many grown adults will badger you into drinking. And I don't. I just tell them, no, I'm good. You enjoy your drink. And I don't make other people feel bad for drinking. I just refuse to do it. That's because I enjoy the quality of life that I live. And when people experience this, they tend to stick with it. One of my friends, an old neighbor actually, who was an alcoholic, told me, I asked him, what keeps you sober? And he said, the quality of my life. He has found so many outdoor things that he enjoys doing that he just won't touch a drink. It doesn't interest him. And I think that's really cool, because that is coming from someone who actually was a genuine alcoholic at one point in his life, who could not get through the day without binge drinking. And I think that's wise. That's a bit of wisdom that we could all learn from. That is how I stopped drinking. It was a choice over my time, my energy in my life, or booze. And it ends up, ultimately one of the other benefits is that your bank account ends up a bit bigger. It's kind of astonishing how much money we all waste on alcohol. Now, I just want to talk about how I quit caffeine. It wasn't a gradual process. It was cold turkey. So I quit caffeine because I had been long addicted to caffeine ever since I was a little kid. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she was Irish, and as the Irish and the English believe, is that most problems in life can be solved with a cup of tea, or at least solved over a cup of tea. And so I was drinking black tea from a young age, and then I would always sneak sips of coffee from my mother's cup. And I loved it, and eventually she just let me start drinking coffee. And, I'm not going to slam my mom. She is a very nice lady. So yes, I was addicted to coffee. One of my first jobs, actually my first job, was working at a coffee shop, and I would down espresso shots like you wouldn't believe. And that can't be good for someone so young, let alone anyone of any age. So by the time I got to the point of quitting caffeine, the first time was in 2008. I only managed to quit for 6 or 7 months, and I wasn't fully into it. I didn't like it. So it just wasn't the right time for me, but it was the right direction. And then back in February of 2022, I quit caffeine cold turkey. And so how did I do that, and why did I do that? Let's start with the why. So as I said, I've been long addicted to caffeine. At that point, I was drinking 1 or 2 chai lattes a day. First of all, that's expensive, no matter which way you dice it. But mostly it's because that's a lot of caffeine and a lot of sugar too. Most people make chai lattes with sugar in them already. I was getting pretty ill, I would say. I also drank regular lattes too, and regular drip coffee and just straight espresso. And I would have probably the equivalent of 5 cups of coffee a day. I would not sleep well, I'm not gonna lie. And also I would wake up feeling foggy and, never clear-minded, never clear vision either. And also just very sluggish and tired. And obviously I felt better than I did when I was drinking alcohol, but I still wasn't where I wanted to be. And eventually I just said, enough's enough. And I quit. That was it. I just stopped. But how did I just stop? Well, that transition was made possible by juicing. I didn't juice every single day ever since I quit caffeine, just to be clear. But I did use my juicer, and that's not a blender. I'm talking about an actual juicer. I'm pressing the pulp out of it. I juiced fruit for, I think it was 7 or 8 days straight, and I drank a solid 24 ounces. I'd pour them into a ball jar, and I stopped craving caffeine. Now, is that going to work for someone else? I don't know. Give it a try. It may work for you. Will you need 7 or 8 days? I don't know. Maybe you'll need more. Maybe you'll need less. But that is how I went about it. Now, I have not gone back. Again, it's the same with the alcohol. The quality of life and how good I feel is the reason why I haven't gone back. What I will say, though, is that occasionally I will have a decaf latte or a cup of decaf coffee, and I do realize that there is a tiny bit of caffeine in that cup of coffee or that latte. And I'm not gonna freak out over that because I don't need those drinks daily. I tend to sleep well, and I have an overall extremely healthy life, and I don't think that being rigid for the sake of being rigid is valuable. I just want to feel good and to be healthy, and so I am living the way I do for that reason. So I hope that this is helpful to you. I think that the benefits are immense. I would like to say that aside from feeling good, my skin is much better. I wake up clear-minded. I have way more energy. I don't need as much sleep. I bounce out of bed. I'm serious. I have a great diet, and I'm also very physically active, so that has something to do with it. And I get a lot of natural sunlight, but I jump out of bed. I have lots of energy. And I think that not drinking caffeine and not drinking alcohol has a lot to do with this. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.